Dear students, while discussing and classifying research designs, we talked about a continuum between qualitative and quantitative studies. Qualitative and quantitative has been the center of discussion for the last 30 and so years, and most of the experts were busy sometimes in discussion like which one is the best possible research design or research data collection tools, data collection procedures. But now as researchers, we must know that quantitative and qualitative are basically two ends of the same continuum, right? Because both have different, data collection procedures, and both have different tools, different instrumentations, right? So this is the idea that in this class and in this session, we are going to discuss about these two possibilities, these two ends of the same continuum, qualitative and quantitative. Because qualitative and quantitative have separate designs and methodologies, and there are possibilities where we can talk about the selection of whether to go for qualitative or quantitative studies. Quantitative data collection is basically required in studies like psychology, when you need to have maximum representation, right? There are studies most of the time which are done in studies related to behaviors of the people. When you want to know the psychology of the people, there are studies even when 4,000, 5,000 people are involved. And in this case, you are required to use statistics, right? You would be using a lot of statistics. And of course, you would be using a tool which would suit you to collect data from thousands of people. Like in this case, a questionnaire, for example, or an online survey, right? So quantitative data, when larger samples are involved, when statistics are involved, and most of the time we want to generalize the studies. We want to generalize whatever are the findings of the samples from the samples, and we want to generalize them to the whole group, the whole population, right? If you remember our discussion on the difference between information-rich paradigm and representative sampling paradigm. So representative sampling paradigm is based on quantitative studies because we want to have maximum representation. So when this maximum representation is there, we are in a position to generalize. So quantitative study is a study which is involving larger populations. A lot of people are involved, and then it is used for large-scale studies. On the other hand, qualitative study or qualitative data collection is a study which is most of the time used in subjects like anthropology and sociology, right? When we want to discuss the verbal data, right, and the verbal description, so we are concerned with views, feelings, experiences, right, and emotions, for example, but through verbal data, right? So in this case, we need not to go for large sample sizes. We are concerned with the information, and qualitative study is the study which is based on this information-rich paradigm. We need in-depth information, right? Information which is based on maximum available feedback, right? So that is qualitative study, and we want to uncover maximum information. So for uncovering that maximum information, we want to go for qualitative studies. Another point which is the feature of qualitative study is that we would go for natural setting, without any treatment, without any addition or deletion. We want to study a phenomena holistically, right, within natural setting, right? And then we would be concerned with that sample or with that information, with that natural setting for a longer time duration. We would be concentrated and we would be in contact with our sample for larger times. And we are concerned with patterns, comparisons, contrasts, feelings, views, experiences, and everything which is based on information, right? So that is something which is required. Now let me take you to this continuum between qualitative and quantitative studies. So if you are working with something which is based on information, so you are basically at this end of the continuum, qualitative studies. Okay, and if you want to go for another aspect of the study, and it is related to quantitative, you are actually at this end of the continuum, and you are actually collecting data from larger samples, and you are using statistics, and you are actually involving a lot of numericals and larger level studies. On the other hand, if you are at this qualitative studies, you are concerned with with the information based studies, like for example, it may be an ethnographical study. You are concerned with ethnography, or you may be working on a study like protocol analysis when you are analyzing a particular protocol, or you may be going for case studies because you are concerned with a case. It may be a single case, right? One individual, but you want to explore it fully, and in-depth analysis is given, so it is a case study. Or you want to go for conversational analysis, so that is a qualitative study. So we must know that at which end of the continuum we are, and there is one possibility that we may be using a study where both of the tools are involved. Like for example, we may be using a questionnaire which is based on quantitative study, and we may also be interviewing the experts. So in this case, our arrow would be here in the mid. So we must be knowing the nature of this continuum, and then on the basis of our requirement of the study, we would be selecting the possibility from these two, that whether to go for qualitative study or quantitative study.